Well, thank you, everybody, for being here this evening. We don't get big crowds for the lower ballot races, but I have to tell you that it's in my experience that you guys are just as important as the big guys and gals at the top. So my name is Joanne Fleming. I'm Executive Director of Grassroots America We the People PAC. And we welcome you here this evening. And I think I'm going to ask, who am I going to ask? I'm going to ask Sarah Maynard. See, Sarah, you never know. I'm going to ask Sarah Maynard to come up here and open us in a word of prayer. And then Jack, why don't you come lead us in the pledges? See, you have to always be ready at our meetings because you never can tell when the teacher's going to call on you. Okay, Sarah. You'll stand and join me. Oh, Father, thank you for bringing us all here tonight. Pray that you would calm our hearts and our minds and give us the energy and attention to focus where you would have us to focus. Pray for those that are in the hot seat tonight. Give them calm nerves and help this to be all to your glory. We ask in the name of your Son. Amen.
Now for the flag, American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Okay, so the candidates have acknowledged that they got the rules of engagement and the format, and I want to go over those rules with the audience. And I don't believe I have to do this, but on the occasion that someone says I didn't tell them what the rules were, I need to go ahead and get that covered. The audience decorum and good manners will be maintained at all times. You're welcome to applaud, but we will not allow anyone to yell at the candidates or stand up and challenge a candidate or the moderator. This is not the place for rude, crude behavior. And trust me, I've been in candidate forums across this state, and not everybody is as well behaved as people in Smith County. We welcome you, but we ask that you display courteous behavior toward your neighbors and be respectful to those who are here simply to become informed. Please silence your phones, and if you happen to still use a pager, silence it. If you get a call, please do not answer it until you completely exit the room. Look, guys, it's hard to be a candidate. It's hard to be a candidate. If you've never been one before, you don't even know what it's like. But anyway, so we want to make sure that we don't distract the candidates. No candidate or campaign staffer has seen the questions. In fact, nobody has seen the questions I have but me. Now, our board, which I'm going to introduce in just a little while, have questions, but I can assure you they've not shared their questions with the candidates either. Candidates may stand or remain seated to give opening and closing statements. Candidates were given the time limits in order of the program in advance. Candidates drew numbers and will introduce themselves in that order. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. This will be followed by questioning. Each candidate will have 1 to 2 minutes to answer the question based on the moderator's instructions. We are not looking for bumper sticker sound bites. The questions are designed to bring out the candidate's core principles, values, skill sets, and intent for the office for which they are seeking. There will be no additional time given for rebuttals until the end, where candidates will have 2 minutes each to rebut or to bring up a new topic or to finish a point on a previous question. Time limits will be enforced. Candidates, if you are mid-sentence and need to complete a sentence, you may do so. But please don't start a new paragraph and certainly not a new chapter. It won't work here. So, we also want to let you know that candidates in this race may be eligible for endorsement by the Board of Directors of Grassroots America We the People PAC. However, it takes 5 of 7 votes on the board to endorse in any race. If no candidate garners 5 votes, the board will consider a recommendation which requires 4 of 7 votes. Grassroots America does not necessarily endorse in every race. A public statement will be released after the board has had an opportunity to deliberate the results of the candidate forum. I also want to let you all know that in between this forum for Constable Precinct 2 and County Commissioner Precinct 2, we will have to have a few minutes to allow Mr. Schulter to switch camera batteries and get the Zoom meeting going on between the races. So, at that time, then you guys will exit the stage and the commissioners' candidates will enter the stage. Now, we do have a candidate for county commissioner who has COVID. So we're going to do something tricky tonight, and we're going to try to get him into the meeting by Zoom to give him a fair opportunity. So now, before I get seated, I want to introduce the board. We have Mr. Rick Eisenbach here on the end, and then Mr. Tom Fabry. He is our timekeeper, and he has the cards that you all will need to look at him as you're answering questions from time to time. Then Craig Riccardi will be on my right, and he helps with the matrix, and guess who left a matrix at home? So you're going to have, you know how to do it, 3 columns, to help us in the order of asking the questions. We want to be random and not give the same opportunity to any 1 or 2 people to answer the question first or last. And then on the end, we have Miss Tony Fabry, who's on our board. We also have Mary Ann, who's standing back here. She's recovering, and so she's going to listen in from back there. And then Mr. Spearin and Miss Sue Evenwell, Jim Spearin and Sue Evenwell, are not with us, but that is the purpose of our video, for them to watch so that they can deliberate with us. So gentlemen, thank you for running, and thank you for being here, and I'm going to be seated, and we're going to get our questions going.
Take the microphone with you.
Oh, that's right. If it doesn't come apart, okay. So now, Mr. Wayne Allen will go first for his opening remarks. Then next will be Chris Roberts, and Deal will go last, and then it'll be reverse order for the closing comments. Thank you, gentlemen. You may begin.
All right. My name is Wayne Allen. I'm running for Constable Precinct 2. I'm not a politician. I'm not a public speaker, as you'll see. But what I am is I'm a Christian, I'm a conservative, and I'm a public servant. I've been married to my wife, Heather, for 24 years. We have 3 children in age from 18 to 26 years old. We've attended Rose Heights Church, been members there for 23 years. And she's been on staff at Rose Heights for about 18 years now. We serve locally with King's Storehouse, Salvation Army, as well as Blue Santa through the Fraternal Order of Police. And we serve internationally with Rose Heights in Romania, in Mexico, as well as with YWAM in Nicaragua. And in 2018, we started our own nonprofit, which built a baby house in Uganda, Africa, this past year, which houses babies, orphaned and abandoned babies. There's currently 11 babies at that home. We also support a street boys ministry, which takes boys off the street that have run away, been trafficked, things like that. There's currently about 35 to 40 boys at that home, ranging in age from 5 years old to 23 years old. On top of that, I've been with Tyler PD for 28 years, recently retired from Tyler PD. I've done all areas of law enforcement with Tyler PD. I've responded to any kind of call you can imagine over that 28 years. All 28 years were with Tyler PD in law enforcement, and we're on the streets responding to the citizens of Tyler. I've received awards, Rookie of the Year, 2 Medal of Valor, one from Tyler PD, one from Smith County. Those were mainly for the courthouse shooting, responding to the courthouse shooting, as I was one of the first responders there. I appreciate your time here. I appreciate you having us, Joanne and the board, and I look forward to speaking to you and hopefully earning your endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Chris Roberts. I'm a conservative Christian, married to Mary Lee. She's back in the back. We've been married for 25 years. Got 4 great kiddos that are all in college. I've got 3 at Texas A&M and 1 at SFA. Members of First Baptist in Tyler, where I'm a deacon. We've been there for well over 20 years, done just about everything in the church that there is to do, short of pastoring a church. Graduated from the University of North Texas with a bachelor's in criminal justice. I've worked for Irving PD, Texas DPS, and Tyler. And currently I'm a reserve in Precinct 2, where I've been for the last 7 years. Andy Dunklin originally appointed me to that position. I think what separates me from the other candidates is that I'm also a business owner. I own Assured Insulating. I've owned Assured Insulating for over 11 years. I started it from scratch, and I've grown it into one of the largest insulating companies in East Texas. My budget is significantly larger than all the precincts put together. I employ significantly more people than all the precincts put together. And I'll bring my business experience along with my law enforcement experience to this office. And I appreciate you guys coming out tonight and holding this forum for us.
Hi, I'm Dale Farmer, candidate for Precinct 2, Constable, Smith County. I bring with me tonight my wife, Brenda, of 27 years, and the daughter, Leslie. And I've spent the last 38 years working for the Smith County Sheriff's Office, where I've worked in every division of the Sheriff's Office and supervised those divisions too. I've worked in the criminal investigation, civil process, administration, doing budgets, county budgets. Believe me, there may be a small budget in the constable's office, but there's still taxpayer funds that we have to be frugal with. Over the 38 years I was with the Sheriff's Office, made many contacts. I know all of the sheriffs personally in contiguous counties, and that may not sound like much to you, but as a constable and you're looking for a criminal or you need a warrant served across a county line, that a face with a phone call is a tremendous asset to the constable's office. And I also bring to the office, if I'm elected constable, honesty, integrity, and accountability to the constable position, and I will be available to the constituents and the citizens of Precinct 2. I will be out and about, knowing the people. That's where you need to be, is in your precinct. You know your people, you know you know your way around your precinct, and you meet people, help solve their community problems. And I ask for your endorsement.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. I'll take the first question, and this is about warrant service and civil process. It's long been talked about that there is redundant and duplicative warrant service and civil process duties among other law enforcement. And it's suggested in some areas of the state that it is the office of constable that should be abolished to direct funds to other county functions. So I would like for, let's start with Mr. Fulmer. And I want you to, based on your experience, talk about any ideas that you would have that would help eliminate the issue of a constable being at a door, looking a couple of houses down, and seeing a sheriff's department officer down there serving a civil paper or a warrant on the very same street. So if you would talk about that, and I would ask then whenever, and let's give 2 minutes for this, because you want to at the same time let the board know your knowledge of this process, and then give any ideas that you have to improve and streamline and be more cost effective, okay? So go first, and you have 2 minutes each.
As for warrants, there is a common warrant database that should be shared by all law enforcement agencies, constables, in the Smith County Sheriff's Office. And you know that there's warrants in particular areas. When you pull a warrant to go serve it, you know what area they live in. Even if a constable has a warrant that they have generated, it should be in that database. So that could keep you from having duplicate officers out there trying to serve different warrants on the same person, because they're all in the database bank. As for civil process, I know of no common database that these are listed in, but with communications with the sheriff's office, you could probably serve more than one civil process for one stop if you were out there serving civil process.
Thank you, and Craig is helping me make sure we keep in order. So, Mr. Allen.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. The constitutional duties of a constable are mainly to serve civil process, to be a JP bailiff, and those are what they should do. Now, I don't see a need for constables to be running around serving warrants when that's what the sheriff's department does, and I would have absolutely no problem with the sheriff's department putting off all of their civil process on the constables. On top of all those, the constitutional duties are also evictions, and those take up a lot of time. I mean, Precinct 2 did over 300 evictions last year, served over 600 processes, 621. So the process service is one thing. You serve it for 2 or 3 times sometimes, but the evictions, those can take up to 2 hours. So that's where you need to spend your time. Leave the warrant service to the sheriff's department, the criminal warrant service to the sheriff's department, and leave the civil process to the constables. And I would be perfectly fine with if they changed it to do that. And that would free up the sheriff's department to use their budget accordingly. From what I've seen from the other budgets, the constable's offices that do the drug interdiction and things like that, their budgets are way higher than the constable's office in Precinct 2. So they want to do that, that's fine. But, if I got in, I would keep this budget, do as much as we could with the lower amount that we could, the less that we could.
Well, Mr. Allen, as a former county commissioner, I know a little bit about the kind of interesting things that some of our constables have wanted to do in the past, and in fact have gotten into lots of trouble for doing it. All right, Mr. Roberts.
Well, again, our duties are to serve civil process and act as a bailiff for the court, and that's what we should be doing. If we have other warrants, or the sheriff's department has warrants they want help with, more than happy to help those guys. But you actually have you have all kinds of different agencies serving warrants, not just us, not just the sheriff. So as constable, I'd be happy to help with any of those, assuming my deputies had the time and we had the resources to do that. But ultimately, we have our constitutional duties to serve process, act as a bailiff, do evictions, and those are our primary responsibilities. Anything other than that, if I had the time, I'm more than happy to help any other agency, because that's what we're there for. We're certainly there to help Smith County, to help Bullard, to help anybody that needs it. And if I had the time, I'm happy to do it, but ultimately we have a very small office, a very small budget, and so we're limited with our resources of what we can actually do.
You're having trouble hearing that.
Yeah, use the microphone.
Yeah, use the microphone. Mrs. Fabry?
you, gentlemen, for joining us. Constables in each county may belong to the Justices of the Peace and Constables Association of Texas, which is a government sector lobbying organization. Does the county pay membership dues to this particular organization? Would you join this organization? Why or why not?
Me first. I don't know if the county pays dues to them or not, and before I join any organization, I want to see what they stand for and what their beliefs are. I'm not going to join someone just because it's a constable organization or anything else. I'd have to do my homework on it and see. So I can't say as to whether I would join these guys or not. I haven't looked into them. Okay, and I would think, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
I know in the various county budgets, there are membership dues that are budgeted. Personally, I would not spend county funds to personally join a organization, but I will say this, to be a member of that organization, I would look forward for training. A lot of those organizations have a good training program. I work for the sheriff's office, but I wasn't the sheriff, but I pay my membership and dues to the Sheriff Association of Texas. And it's for the training and to make contacts across the state, so when you need help, you have a face with a phone call.
And I also, I don't believe the county pays for those. I don't know that for sure, but I know that I've been a member of Fraternal Order of Police, Texas Municipal Police Association, East Texas Peace Officer Association, and CLEAT. And the only way that I would join those organizations first is like Chris said, to make sure that they go along with my beliefs and go along with the way I believe that the constable's office should be run. And I wouldn't have a problem joining them if they have all of those things, but I see no reason for a county or any government agency to pay for any kind of dues on an organization that benefits me. Now, if it benefited the sheriff's department or the county, I guess you would say, that'd be one thing, but I don't think it definitely shouldn't be mandatory.
Good deal. And the order of questions, order answering that will go Mr. Allen, Mr. Robertson, Mr. Fulmer. One of the many functions of your job is, at times, is to issue traffic citations. And those kinds of offenses, it's a function of law enforcement we all love so much. Because of your geographic jurisdiction, though, you're going to be overlapping with Smith County, Tyler PD, and potentially other agencies, jurisdictions as well. What conversations have you had with the leadership of those entities to minimize territory disputes, facilitate interagency cooperation?
Specifically as to this topic, I've had no discussions. I mean, I know almost every trooper in the district. I know almost every Tyler PD officer, other than the brand new ones, and a lot of the sheriff's deputies. Again, the constitutional duties of the constable are serve process, serve eviction notices, stand by for evictions, and be a JP. I've written probably more tickets. I probably shouldn't even say this. I've written a lot of tickets over my lifetime, and if I don't write another one ever in my life again, I will be fine. Now, to sit out there and be visible in school zones, in places where people request in your downtime, that's fine, and I believe that's what is one of the things that's missing in this office is visibility. People request we got speeders in our street, go sit out there. You don't have to pull anybody over. You just sit out there, you're going to slow people down. I just don't see the reason for stepping on any toes, overlapping any jurisdictions for writing tickets, but if my deputies want to go out there and write any tickets in their slow time, downtime, I would never say don't do it, but I would not be instigating it.
I have not reached out to Chief Toller. I have reached out to Sheriff Smith several occasions. I haven't gotten a response. I have reached out to the Bullard PD chief, and he's welcoming of any support we would give him. I think if we're going to be writing tickets, again, that's not our constitutional duty. We need to make sure we handle those first. But we certainly can get out there and work traffic if we need to, but I think that should be constituent driven. If we're having an issue in a neighborhood, or if it's data driven, if we're having an intersection that has a lot of wrecks in it, maybe we ought to be out there and we ought to be watching that intersection. I certainly think that we ought to be present in school zones, just so the parents and the schools sees a police presence there, because we have some schools in our precinct that don't have any police presence at all. So I'm not opposed to writing tickets, but it should be constituent and data-driven if we're going to do it.
Okay, so, sorry. I had to leave you out, Chief.
In my 38 years of experience, I have only worked at one police department, and that was in 1977, Athens Police Department, where we wrote traffic tickets. The rest of my law enforcement career has been with sheriff's officers. Some have had traffic division, some have not. I do not see a traffic division or working traffic unless you're trying to track down felons on warrants as a necessary tool for the constable's office. I agree with the other two that it is critical in school zones. And if you want to see a traffic problem, go to Hazel Owens Elementary School. You will see one.
That's true. Okay, the next question will be by Mr. Eisenbach, and we'll go in this order. Mr. Fulmer, then Mr. Allen, and then Mr. Roberts for this one.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. Is the job as constable a full-time job? Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It's
Okay. Well, I noticed Mr. Roberts has a business of more employees than even the constabulary. So I'm just wondering, each of you, how do you feel about working another job and doing the job as constable at the same time?
When I retired from the sheriff's office, I had a dirt contractor business, and I have since, I don't do any dirt contracting anymore. I let another gentleman have all of the contracts, and if anybody calls me, I refer them to him. I've been out campaigning the last 3 months, hadn't done any type of part-time jobs, and if I'm elected, I will be full-time constable for the citizens of Precinct 2.
Same with me. When I did retire from Tyler PD in 2019, I was recruited for Home Depot. I've been one of their district operations managers, asset protection manager, over 9 stores, well over 1,000 associates. Private sector pays very well compared to law enforcement, and I will relinquish that job if elected and take a 45% pay cut and be constable in Schuylkill County Precinct 2, and I'll do it full-time.
Well, I'm happy to say that I'm in the final stages of due diligence, and my business is in the process of being sold. I'm hoping in about 3 weeks, I will no longer be a business owner. So I'm happy to retire. And I've got the financial security, and I've got the time that I don't need to work anymore. I'm running for constable because I want to do it. And it is a full-time job. I'll be out there doing the exact same thing all the deputies do on a daily basis, because that's the way I believe a leader should lead, is you lead by example. So I'll do the exact same things the deputies do, just like in my business now. I can do everything and have done everything that any of my employees do, including taking out the trash. I'm no better than anybody else. I just happen to be the boss.
Well, may I ask, do you have any experience in law enforcement whatsoever in your past?
Yes, sir. I started with the city of Irving, where I was a police officer in Irving. From there, I moved to DPS.
I'm sorry, you mentioned that.
Okay.
Okay, so the next question will be from Mr. Fabry, and it will be in this order. We'll start with Mr. Allen, then Mr. Roberts, and we'll end with Mr. Fulmer.
Gentlemen, so as you know from earlier conversation, I'm brand new to the Tyler area. But I have read the papers, and given recent, shall we say, misdeeds with constables, what are your specific actions, what will they be, to restore credibility and confidence in the office of Constable Precinct 2?
That's a great question. And it's not just the recent past with the constables. I believe there's been 5 or 6 over the last 10 years that have done things that make the public distrust them. And children look up to police officers, and when they see them in the news in this negative manner, it's not good. And that's what needs to be restored. You need to be out in the public, not just behind the desk for whatever reason, but out in the public, seeing the constituents, answering, going with the deputies to serve process, but seeing people not just in a bad light when they're getting process served on or evictions, but being out in the public and seeing them. Neighbor Night Out, National Night Out in October, I don't think the Constable's Office ever participates in that. We've done those for 28 years at Tyler PD, participated in those. I believe the Sheriff's Department probably does, and we participate in those as well. Constable Scott has started the Coffee with the Constable that he does every so often. Those are great ideas. I'm not all warm and fuzzy a lot of time, but I went to a couple of those, and I think they're great events. And just work with integrity, serve with integrity, and people will see it. You're known by your actions, not by your words, and that's what we need to get back to.
We need to be out in the community. We need to be going to the schools. I love it that the sheriff read to the kids a couple weeks ago and was reading the book to them at book time. We should be doing things like that. We should be going to show and tell in schools. We should be meeting the homeowners association, showing up at their meetings, letting them know that we're there. Any neighborhood meeting, any apartment meeting, we need to be out there and so they can see us and get to know us and be accessible to them at all times. Just like I say in my commercials, my door is always open and my phone is always on. And that's how the constable needs to be as well, because the constituents are basically our customers and we're responsible to them. So we need to be out there every day, meeting and greeting and talking to them and letting them see us in action.
I agree with the activity in the community, in the schools, but I look back on my 38 years with the Sheriff's Office. I've never been disciplined or investigated for any reason, and I think that speaks for itself.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, so the next round of questions, we'll start with Mr. Roberts, then we'll go to Mr. Fulmer, and then Mr. Allen will finish this up. Okay, gentlemen, I want you to think through the process that you will use to justify your budget request to the Commissioner's Court. And please be as specific as possible based on your experience with trying to get somebody to give you all the money you ask for.
The constable's budget is actually pretty small. This year's budget is $462,756. I mean, it's a small budget, and the majority of that is in salary and benefits, which the commissioner set. So another part of the budget this year is we have a little over $30,000 in a capital expense where the department's buying a new car. So that only leaves $45,000 in operating expense, for which I really have a whole lot to do with. It's a very small portion of the budget. It's 10%. So sure, I'm going to justify my 10%. And if I can do more with less, great. I may need to ask for more money because you're running a department of 4 people, you're running cars, you have a whole lot to do, and you really only have $45,000 to do it with. So in the whole scheme of things, we don't have much to operate on.
Let me ask you a more specific question as a follow-up, and you all will be able to use this in your answer as well. A lot of times, department and agency heads will come to the Commissioner's Court and say, we need $10,000 extra in fuel funds for next year. So if you ask for an increase in anything, but let's just take fuel for an example, what would be the logical justification for that?
Well, let's look at the stats we did for last year. We served 661 papers. And if I only serve 500, but yet I'm asking for more money, those two really don't go together. If we didn't have any backups or answer any calls for service, how can I justify that? if I'm going to ask for more money, I'm going to bring you solid numbers as to why I need it or why I think I need it. I'm not just going to say, hey, we had this much last year and, we got a little tight at the end and we really need some more money. I'm going to give you some numbers to justify what I'm asking for.
I believe you touched base on the fuel cost. That would be, to me, the only line item that you would ask for an increase in, and that's kind of uncontrolled because that's the economy that dictates the price of gasoline. But asking for $10,000 at one time for fuel, I think you need to ask for budget amendments through the year to make it through the year. The county budget is, if you want to increase the budget, you need to do you set your goals out and it's be performance-based. You need to lay out what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, what you're going to do, and how you're going to accomplish that. It's not, you just don't ask for it and get it, because believe me, over the years I've had to prioritize priorities numerous times to get a budget approved. I understand where the money comes from the taxpayers.
The only logical explanation I can think is either poor planning or the economy, rising gas prices that we didn't anticipate. Going out and doing more backups and things than you thought you might, that might be another logical answer, but I would only, in budget process, I would only go and request the absolute necessities, no fluff, things like that aren't needed. I know that over the past few years, the Precinct 2 Constable's office didn't even have bulletproof vest, and that's insane to be responding to calls, to be serving process in a uniform in a marked car without a vest on. Tyler PD, that would have been a violation of policy for you to even respond to a call or come to work without a vest on. But these guys were doing it day in and day out. Constable Scott's gotten those taken care of and ordered, but I've sent 3 kids to private school on a police officer's salary, single income, with my wife staying at home. I've been called thrifty, and I've been called cheap, and I've been called worse. So that's...
Okay, so I'm going to ask you really quickly, and this is the only yes or no you'll probably ever get here. So each one of you, and we'll start down here and go down. So are you going to ask for a raise? If you're elected, is the first thing you're going to do, and in your very first budget cycle, you're going to ask for a raise?
No.
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 I'll write your own record, Jimmy. Okay, Mrs. Fabry, and what order are we in? We have Mr. Fulmer first, we have Mr. Allen second, and Mr. Roberts third.
Truancy rates are increasing, especially with homeschooling at this time. Identifying actual truants can be difficult. Discuss the approach that you would take in monitoring and executing your duties in this area.
I think basically the groundwork with children needs to start at the schools, being active in the schools. And I recall numerous times when I was with the sheriff's office, the school would come to the sheriff's office with a problem student, with the parent's permission, or the parents would bring the student to the sheriff's office and ask that we escort them through the jail, more or less a scared straight type situation. And I'm a firm believer in that, starting at the ground level with those children and being active with the children in the schools. And it sounds horrible to say that you're going to scare a child straight, but if you can save one child out of 100, you're successful in today's society.
Well, I can tell you that the scared straight part doesn't really work in law enforcement. You have parents bringing kids to you saying he's going to take you to jail and do these kind of things if you don't do this or that, and I hate that. Again, the constitutional duties of the constable's office are civil process, serving as a JP court and doing evictions. So I don't know that there's a whole lot of things that the constable can do as far as truancy, but I believe it starts at home and being a good example for children and being a good example for parents. I mean, we're all parents, so being a good example. Once you're elected in these offices, you are a role model, whether you want to be or not. And I don't think that's understood. But I have done that for my kids and my kids' friends and other parents. We put on marriage conferences, all kinds of things that we try to be a good example. And really, that's where it starts. And truancy is a horrible problem. But like you said, with homeschooling, it's going to be hard to tell driving down the street when a kid's skipping school or whether he's homeschooled. So,
With our constitutional duties, that's going to take up a lot of our time. I'm completely in favor of working with the school. And if they have a problem that they identified and they want to bring it to us for us to potentially help them with it, I'm absolutely open to that. But with homeschoolers, you're going to have kids potentially running around all the time. So how are we going to know, hey, you ought to be at school and, well, you're on recess with mom. So I don't know if there's a whole lot we can actually do about that, but if the school wants to bring something to our attention and work with us, I'm more than happy to do it.
Thank you.
And the order for this question will be Mr. Roberts, Mr. Fulmer, and Mr. Allen. This is a three-part question. The first question is, how many years have you had a Texas peace officer license? Simple question. The second part, have you ever had your license suspended, and if yes, why? And thirdly, what experiences have you had over your tenure in law enforcement that makes you believe that your skill set is the best fit amongst your peers for this position?
I've been a police officer since 1996, so I'm coming up on year 26. I spent most of my time in patrols. And the role of constable, while we do law enforcement, most of the heavy hitting is left to the sheriff's office and the other departments. We're certainly there to back them up, but again, our constitutional duties are to serve process, do evictions, be a bailiff for the court. So, yes, I firmly believe you need law enforcement experience to do the job, but we're not going to go out and investigate homicides. We're not going to investigate robberies. We're not going to do things like that. That's the job of the other agencies.
Did I miss one? Oh, three.
And I've never had my license suspended.
I have been a licensed peace officer since 1976. I have to count the years up, but that's been about 45 years, close to it, and I've never had my license suspended.
And then what experiences in your tenure in law enforcement make your skill set the best for this position?
Knowing the county budgeting system, how to maintain, prepare and ask for a budget and maintain that budget, and also the experience in civil process through the sheriff's office.
I've been a Texas peace officer for 31 years. 28 of that was Tyler PD. The last 3 was just maintaining my certification over the last 3 years through my continuing education. I've never had my license suspended, never in jeopardy of that. I mean, overall experience, yes, our duties are not to work homicides, to work school shootings, things like that, but I believe I'm the only candidate up here that's responded to active shooters, responded to bank robberies, multiple, not just 1 or 2, homicides, suicide, family disturbances, any violation of the penal code. I'm pretty sure I've responded to it. I have experience in leadership. I have experience in management. Over 1,000 associates currently that I manage at Home Depot. The commissioner's operating budget, $45,000. I mean, my family budget is that big. So I'm definitely a conservative and be able to handle those kind of budgets as well.
Okay, and Mr. Eisenbach will have the next question. It'll be in this order, gentlemen. Number 1 is Mr. Allen. Number 2, Mr. Roberts. And to finish up the question will be Mr. Fulmer.
Thank you. Gentlemen, have you received, for example, endorsements, in your case, Mr. Fulmer, from Sheriff Smith, or in your case, Mr. Allen, from Chief Toller, or from any of your previous superiors, Mr. Roberts, for this position? Received any endorsements at all from these folks?
Yes, sir. Chief Toner is unable to endorse due to city policy. City management can endorse. I've got endorsements from Tyler Patrolmen's Association, which represents all of Tyler PD. Been endorsed by Bob Turner, who's the former city manager of Tyler. Stuart Haney, who's a current city manager, city councilman in Tyler. As far as people that supervised me, both of my previous sergeants, lieutenants, sheriff's lieutenants, I've gotten endorsements from them, and many personal and professional endorsements as well. But as far as work, those are the ones that I've gotten endorsements so far.
I haven't asked for any endorsements. I've got a long list of supporters on my website. Those might as well be an endorsement, but personally, I've not asked for any endorsements.
I have several endorsements. The Sheriff Larry Smith, our current sheriff, former retired Sheriff J.B. Smith, the Nancy Braswell, who was our auditor for 25 years prior to Ms. Wilson, our current auditor. I've spoken with Chief Toller and echoing Mr. Allen. He does not allow him to openly endorse, but he has told me that he supports me. And retired Texas Ranger and retired Henderson County Sheriff Ronnie Brownlow also have his endorsement.
Okay, so the next question will come from Mr. Fabry, and number 1 will be Mr. Allen, number 2 will be Mr. Roberts, and number 3 will be Mr. Palmer. Oh, okay, sorry. 1 is Roberts, 2 is Palmer, 3 is Allen. See, I'm trying to confuse y'all.
Given the situation with the interim constable, what changes would you make to the operation of the department if you were elected? What changes would you make if you're elected?
Well, some of those changes are being made now, but one, I would want us to back up the county and Bullard. I want us to be actively involved backing them up. 2, I want us to be involved. I want us to actually be there at the school zones and have a presence there, especially during pickup and drop-off. And 3, which is actually should be number 1, the most important thing I want to do is that I want to write some policy. We don't have any policies or procedure in Precinct 2, and we haven't as long as I've been there. So that's my number 1 priority, and the other 2 are to be more active, especially at the schools, and be more active helping the county out.
Be more active in the community, be more active with all of the law enforcement agencies in the county, especially in the Precinct 2. I haven't viewed the policies of Smith County Precinct 2 Constable. If I'm elected at such time, I will review those policies, and if there's needed changes or additions, I will make those additions.
And I echo those statements. I do know that Sean has already written policies. He's in the process of getting those approved. There were no policies, which could be a problem, or is a problem. So he's in the process of getting those implemented and approved. I would put the laptops back in the vehicles that at some point over the last 10 years, the last 2 constables have been taken out, which just makes them more effective. They're able to track their calls, their process service, to get them back on the Odyssey system, which they're not on the Odyssey system right now, which is ridiculous. There's no reason to not be on it. It ties together everybody in the county, and after all of that, be more visible in the public. But first and foremost, in some way, restore the integrity of the office and I'm trying to think of the word, making it run smoother and more effective, and as far as the computer systems and things that they've neglected.
Okay, that was very illuminating. So you guys, you're telling me that they took the laptops out of the constable vehicles, were not connected to Odyssey, and there were no written policies and procedures for the office?
That's correct. The laptops are made to be taken to and from the vehicles, but they've only been taken from, not to.
Okay, all right. All right, during candidate interviews last cycle, the last elected occupant of the office of Smith County Constable Precinct 2 looked us in the eye and lied. And it's just too bad that the public found out about his behavior after he was elected. So I'm going to ask you all this question now. In what order are we doing? Mr. Fulmer, Mr. Allen, and then Mr. Roberts. Is there anything in your current or past conduct that you would not want your spouse, your children, your parents, your pastor, your neighbors, your friends, or this board to see posted on a billboard? If the answer is yes, you may speak to this board privately about it. If the answer is no, make sure your answer is true. Because I will assure you that if we discover a lie after we endorse a candidate, the public divorce will be very painful and very public. I promise.
Absolutely unequivocally no.
I had the same answer, no. Been married for 24 years to my wife, never been unfaithful. Any mistake we've ever made in our past, we've actually discussed with our children in hopes of preventing that. We don't hide anything from our kids. We don't hide anything from our pastor. Anything that's ever been in our past has all been out in the open already.
Same here, no.
Okay, now we are at where you all get to do your 2 minutes. So I'm going to remind everybody that your 2 minutes is to let you bring up a new topic. If we didn't ask you a question about something that you feel very deeply and passionately about, bring it up. If there's something to rebut, and you guys you've played nice tonight, I don't think you have any of that. But if you have a question, if you thought of the last part of an answer that you didn't have time to give, you can use your 2 minutes for that. Just remember that you also have a 1 minute close. So we're going to go in this order. Mr. Fulmer will go first for his 2 minutes, then Mr. Allen, and then Mr. Roberts.
I think I pretty well thoroughly covered my qualifications and my work history. I have a good work history with the Sheriff's Office. The last 7 of that was an honor with Sheriff Larry Smith. And again, I have not ever been investigated. I guess I'm kind of doing my closing here. Bear with me a minute. But I have nothing that I would change, actually, that I haven't already said.
Thank you. I just appreciate the actual tough questions. I've been to some forums where we didn't get these tough questions, and I think that the public needs to know and hear some of these tough questions, and our answers to it. But, I would just go back and say I'm a conservative through and through, pro-life, pro-Second Amendment, pro-family, anti-vaccine mandate, all of these things. I don't drink, I don't smoke. So I don't think you can get more conservative than me. And we serve. That's all I want to do. I just want to serve this community. When I stepped down to go in the private sector 3 years ago and work for Home Depot, I thought that was going to be a career-ending move, just finish out my career. But people don't understand, if you've never worked in law enforcement, what you miss when you're gone. And it sounds stupid, I know, to people that have never done it, but you just can't change from it. So that's what I would have to say. Thank you.
I look around and I look around at other governments and I see some of the things going on that to me is just not right. We've had, in the last 2 years, we've had a lot of our liberties been taken away or tried to take away, and we've had mandates forced on us, and we've had closures forced on us, and we've had things like that, in my opinion, are just flat unconstitutional. And we have a nice little conservative bubble here in Smith County that, to me, seems pretty unusual. And I love it. And I want to make sure we keep that here. So this was really never touched on, but this is something that at least I want to get out. That any more mandates, any more executive orders that are unconstitutional, that I feel are unconstitutional, I'll tell you guys I'm not going to enforce them. Because I think that's important, because at some point, we the people have to stand up and say enough. And I want to make sure that at least y'all know that, and that's my stance right here, because I just see this encroachment continuing into our lives, and at some point our elected officials have to say stop. And as constable, I will say stop.
Okay, so now you have a 1-minute close, and Mr. Fulmer goes first, Mr. Roberts second, and Mr. Allen is last.
I would ask that you take a close look at the difference in the experience level at county versus city government, knowing that I already have the county, the experience in budgets, civil process, patrol, criminal investigations, and that, to me, that puts me the most favored candidate, I feel, because of those county government experiences. And again, I will bring honesty, integrity, and accountability to the citizens of Precinct 2.
I want to remind everybody that I do have law enforcement experience, and I'm also a business owner, and I'll bring those business practices, that business way of thinking to this office. And I understand that private business is different from county business, but that thinking can translate over to that. I will no longer be a business owner, which I'm happy about, so either I'm going to be elected and I'll be your constable until I retire, or I'm going to go sit on the beach, one of the two. But I'm doing it because I want to. I don't have to, I want to. The people of Smith County have been so good to me for so many years with the success of our business and supporting me, and I feel like it's my turn to give back now. So that's the reason I'm running, just to serve and to give back from what's been given to me.
All right, and I'd like to just thank everybody. I mean, this is, I'm not a politician, like I said, so these have, it's been interesting, but I would just like to add some of the other endorsements that I've gotten along the way in the professional fields. Chris Glennie, Walter Wilhelmy, Herbert Bowie, a lot of conservative Tyler people, and they've known me for a long time, and these are personal relationships that they know me for and have endorsed me for. As far as the county city government, I can tell you that the city of Tyler, being an accredited agency, and the rules and things that we are required to follow, I won't say that they're more professional than the sheriff's department, but it's not, you won't find a good old boy system at the Tyler PD, I can tell you that. It's, to be promoted, you have to test, and then a written test and an oral board. So nothing against anybody up here, I promise, but just that's what I bring to the table is the professionalism of Tyler PD and the experience, because the budgetary process is a very small process of the constable's office. Most of it is going to be out in the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.